The U.S. Secret Service yesterday issued a response to reports about the lack of communication between agencies during the attempted assassination in Butler, Pennsylvania, just a couple of weeks ago now. As we all know, on July 13th, this young man, 20 years old, was able to gain access to a roof. There's reports that Secret Service had abandoned the roof because it was too hot and because the slope was too steep, which gave him a clear line of sight to President Donald Trump when he took the stage. Crooks, this young man fired off 8 rounds, which one grazed the president's ear, his right ear. Finally, the FBI is confirming that it was a bullet that struck his ear. Christopher Wray last week suggested that it was shrapnel or something else, did not want to admit that someone tried to kill the president, the former president. Several reports have emerged since the shooting that suggest that law enforcement were aware of this well before Donald Trump took the stage. There's conflicting reports. We'll eventually get to the truth of exactly what the timeline was. But needless to say, it's kind of hard to believe that this young man was able to be on this rooftop with a rifle and Secret Service did not recognize that he was there. We learned some new information over the weekend from this local SWAT team. Beaver County's lead sharpshooter, Jason Woods, and some of his team were interviewed by ABC News over the weekend. He said that there was no contact between his organization and the Secret Service until after Trump was shot. There were supposed to be briefings. According to him, they never happened. Cut number 1.
We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong, because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
You had no communication with the Secret Service at all on that Saturday?
Not until after the shooting.
And by then?
It was too late.
Wow. That's just unheard of, that you had a local law enforcement agency, a SWAT team with sharpshooters, and there was not some type of coordination efforts. It kind of opens your eyes on how something like this could have happened, doesn't it? It kind of answers the question that we've all been asking. How does a 20-year-old carry a long gun up to the top of a roof within, 130 yards of a former president of the United States and fire 8 rounds before he's taken out? Of course, Ms. Cheadle, with the director of the U.S. Secret Service, resigned her position, as she should have. But there needs to be more questions asked. Was this just incompetence? Did the Secret Service get lax in their duties? Because I've had nothing but praise for the Secret Service over the years. I've been to a lot of these Trump rallies and other presidential visits over the years, starting with Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon. I'm a little older. I remember them. And the Secret Service does a fabulous job. But clearly something happened on July the 13th to allow 8 shots to be fired, unfortunately taking the life of one of Trump supporters, one rally-goer. We're told that the 2 other men who were also hit by a bullet have now been released from the hospital, but they still have some time ahead of them before their serious injuries they recover. And all because a 20-year-old was allowed to be on this roof. And supposedly there's reports that he was a known entity, that the Secret Service had been told, not only by some of the attendees who had who had called local law enforcement, who had contacted them, but that other law enforcement officers had also seen him. I mean, again, it's kind of unheard of that you would be allowed to somehow get on this roof. And it's just crazy that if it turns out to be true that a Secret Service officer was on this roof and it was too hot and he came down from his post, if that's true, he or she, then they should be fired as well. Back to the phones. Vic is in my home state of South Carolina in Greenwood. Welcome, Vic.
How you doing, Joey?
I'm wonderful. Hope you are.
Well, I was a police officer in 1976, and we had a Democratic presidential candidate come to our fair city in Green Cove Springs, Florida. I was notified to go check buildings in the area. I found a unlocked warehouse, and it had a second floor to it, and I called them in, and they came out there right then and checked it out, and I stayed there until they had the building secured. And they seemed like they were up to par in 1976, and that was when Jimmy Carter came to our fair city.
Well, and appreciate your phone call, Vic. Thank you for listening in Greenwood, South Carolina. Look, up until now, I've always thought the Secret Service did a yeoman's job. And I've been involved in the planning of events that involve Secret Service over the years, and they've always been very detailed-oriented. An example that I've talked about in the past is just last summer in my hometown area of upstate South Carolina, there was a major Trump rally in Pickens, South Carolina. It's a small town in our area, and I know weeks leading up to the event, the Secret Service they kind of took over a local vacant building there in downtown Pickens. They worked very closely with the sheriff's office there in Pickens County, with the police chief in Pickens, and others. And I mean, very detailed. But evidently something happened in the line of communication on July 13th. And for this local SWAT team to have not been briefed, for them to just been to just have shown up and not been briefed by the Secret Service prior to, there's something bad wrong with that for sure. Back to the phones. George is in Gardner, Massachusetts. Welcome, George.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I was just wondering what your thoughts are on, this is going through my mind, is if Biden just announced that he was resigning because of his illness, dementia or whatever, and Harris all of a sudden becomes the 47th president before the election.
Well, I pray that doesn't happen, because I do not want Kamala Harris sitting at the Resolute desk, even if it's just for a few months. And I think all of us should pray that Joe Biden is able to complete his term. Let's elect Donald Trump in November, and let's have let Joe Biden have a peaceful transition, and Trump take over again in January. Roberta is in New York. Welcome, Roberta. You're on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Oh, hi, Joey. I heard from another listener that CNN, who never broadcasts Donald Trump's rallies, happened to broadcast this one, which sounds very suspicious to me. I can't confirm because I would never turn on CNN, but that's what they said. And I heard they didn't broadcast the one the other night either. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, Roberta, CNN, of course, is not a very friendly network to Donald Trump, but I can say that, and I've been to a number of these, I can say that CNN is usually at these events. I covered the Charlotte, North Carolina Trump rally just last Wednesday, and CNN was there.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Yep. But you never know for sure. Appreciate your phone call. 800-655-MIKE, 1-800-655-6453. Quickly to Larry in Minnesota. Hi, Larry. Welcome to the Mike Gallagher Show.
Yes, sir. I'd just like to say President Trump was awful lucky there was no grassy knoll in Butler.
Yeah. Well, Donald Trump is here simply because of the grace of God. God has bigger
Yes.
plans for Donald Trump, I believe, and we saw that. That was witnessed on July 13th.